Matt Eberflus is now the defensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys. His time with the Chicago Bears, not necessarily the best over his 3 seasons there. You see why he's the defensive coordinator now. Not necessarily the best when it comes to being a head coach. Clearly, he has plenty of skins on the wall when it comes to being a defensive coordinator. We saw what he was able to do with Indianapolis, with the Colts. Now he's here with the Dallas Cowboys. So I bring all that to say, when you have that personnel and you're scheming against opposing players, that's one thing. But what do you think Flus's mindset is when you're scheming against players or a player that allegedly cost you your job as the head coach?
Yeah, that's always allegedly. And Flus has tried to play it real close to the vest this week and been real, not giving out bulletin board material. But, all the things that have come out in the articles over the last, 6 to 8 months between Caleb Williams and Matt Eberflus about whether or not coaches helped him learn how to watch film or, was involved in the offense or cared about it or took accountability from a coaching perspective. All that stuff, trust and believe you me, it's in there somewhere. If you have any bit of competitiveness in you, that you hear that stuff and you go, all right, I get my chance to prove, what it really is on game day. And while Flus won't be able to make a tackle or an interception, he can definitely set his guys up to do so. And, if the relationships are right, and if the relationships are truly good, then you have players on the field that want to go get a little get back for their coach, want to get their lick back for their coach. So, all those things can play a part in this football game. But, if you give Caleb Williams time in the pocket, he's going to give you trouble. And if you don't keep your rush integrity in your lanes, where you're supposed to be rushing at, and you break containment, he is not Lamar Jackson athletic, but he is very athletic, very mobile, will definitely tuck in and run and gain a lot of football yards just scrambling around back there. So it's going to be a challenge for both Caleb offensively because getting his stuff together, but also Matt Eberflus, he got to bring it.
Yes, indeed. I mean, we look at this chess game. Again, there's so many different storylines, but just this individual chess game that we're going to have with Caleb Williams as the quarterback, Matt Eberflus calling the scheme and calling the plays for the defensive side of the ball. Is there one of two that has the advantage in this situation? Is it Caleb Williams who will be on the field facing a secondary that does have some communication issues and some holes in it, or Eberflus who knows all the strengths and weaknesses of his former quarterback?
I'm going to lend it being the advantage offense because, Caleb is still changing, right? He's still growing. He's still maturing. He still has the ability to wreck your game, to wreck the game. For me, Eberflus, he's one of the coaches that a little bit stubborn in his ways. Like, this is what I run. This is how I'm going to run it. And, it kind of sucks for him in a way, because when he took the job, he thought to himself, well, I'll have a definite pass rusher that's going to get after the quarterback that allows me to run this defense, this zone defense on the back end. Well, you don't have that now. And so, you're not getting the pressures. You're not getting the thing that you need up front. You have Trayvon Diggs, who's primarily been a man corner, right? And now you're trying to play him at zone. You have a guy like Donovan Wilson, who's been more of a box safety. You're trying to play him in coverage. So, there's a lot that has to change for Matt Eberflus for this thing to truly be successful. You have to find and manufacture some sort of pass rush. You got to find ways to get Diggs back in a more comfortable place where he can be successful at. You probably still will be without Deron Bland this weekend. So Reddy Stewart has to go out there and play, and Kyer Elam has to go out there and play. Now, where do you play Donovan Wilson? Are you playing him down? Are you playing him back? If you're playing him back, then he has to have the communication with Kyer Elam and Reddy Stewart and Trayvon Diggs on what covers that we're running, and make sure that he gets deeper than the deepest and he's not with his eyes in the backfield. So there's a lot of moving factors that have to happen defensively for Matt Eberflus that won't change this week. But, the advantage goes slightly to the offensive side in Caleb, if you're asking me.
So there it is. Obviously, we know that Jadeveon Clowney has been a new addition to the Dallas Cowboys roster. We know we've discussed it, not necessarily the same player that he once was, but still he's a veteran that can get to the quarterback. More importantly, what he's able to do off the field when it comes to being a veteran. What have you seen or what have you heard when it comes to him being in practice so far this week, the impact that he's had on the practice field, not only with the playbook, because obviously we know that's going to take some time for him to learn that, but him being able to communicate different things to the younger players?
Yeah, it's on display, right? There's a lot of pictures being floated around for Jadeveon Clowney. Just a couple days onto the Cowboys roster where you see him working with some of the younger players, Donovan Ezaraku, Isaiah Land, where they're working on different things, pass rush moves, hand placements, all those type of things. So, he's coming in and hitting the ground running with being a kind of that big brother mentor situation for the Cowboys defensively. And you love to see that young guys are going to these veterans and wanting to soak up that knowledge and wanting to be taught and wanting to learn different techniques. And so that's great to hear from, and see from, Jadeveon Clowney, because he could just simply be a one-year mercenary and just say, I'm going to come here and do my job. I'm not here to make friends. I'm not here to be a coach. I'm not here to put my arm around these younger players. But, the fact that he's showing that days of just being here and these guys are being responsive to him, wanting to learn from him,
Right.
shows that's a great hunger that is there. And you just hope that those guys who are getting that knowledge will be able to use it on Sunday. I don't know how much Jadeveon will play on Sunday because it's a weird thing when you think about it. He hasn't had any offseason. He hasn't had no OTAs, no mini camp, no training camp, nothing. He's been missing the first 2 weeks of football. And the Cowboys yesterday, which is on Wednesday, that's normally a heavy padded practice day, right? It's your main install day. You go out there, it's the most physical day normally throughout the week. But due to the overtime game, they did a walkthrough yesterday. And then today they kind of did almost like a in shells practice. So I don't know where he's getting his conditioning from or where he's getting his feel back for the football field. So if he even plays this week, the pitch count will probably be very, very low.
Different situations we'll probably see him getting in, maybe on third downs or different other types of situations in the game. Believe in Cowboys, that's the name of the program. Like us, listen, and subscribe. Jesse Holley along with Ro Parrish, of course, brought to you all by FanDuel. Now, when we talk about the offensive side of the ball, we know that Dak has been utterly amazing so far when it comes to playing the quarterback position. One blemish on his record, but being able to lead this offense is something that he does and does very well, especially when he's healthy. So looking at everything that's happening on the FanDuel Sportsbook website, 25 points. Well, actually 25 and a half. That's what they're giving the Cowboys. Are you going to go over or under as far as points being scored on the road against Chicago?
The Cowboys, I've said this all year long, they're going to have to average somewhere around 28, 32 points a game. That's how they win football games. They're not going to be able to rely on their defense. They're going to have to continue to go out there and to score points. To get into the red zone and to get touchdowns. Thank goodness for a kicker like Brandon Aubrey. But you got to end these drives in touchdowns. That's the way that you're going to be able to win football games this year. That's the plan. And so I think that, even in this game, it might come down to whoever has the ball last. Like, honestly, whatever offense has the ball last wins this football game. So I think the Cowboys will score, in the 30s this football game.
So we see what Dak was able to do last week, but also the pass catchers, CeeDee Lamb, probably going to be double covered all game. We know Chicago is going to have a very high focus on him. So if you look at it, this probably should be a game, at least from my perspective, that maybe we see George Pickens have his coming out party because there's going to be so much attention on number 88.
Yeah, here's the thing, though. I'm really looking forward to seeing how Shoddy schemes this up because, the Bears are down a couple of DBs, most notably their main, all pro, all world, Jalen Johnson. He won't be playing in this game. He's done for the season. He won't play the season. But they're going with former Dallas Cowboy Nahshon Wright. And while Nahshon may not be the best, George Pickens and his size and his style plays right into the hands of Nahshon Wright. Nahshon Wright's a 6'2", 6'3" corner who's long, who's rangy. It's not very agile when it comes to going side to side. Well, neither is George Pickens. So that's going to be a unique matchup because, normally George Pickens can go up and over top of the smaller DBs, the 5'9", 5'10" DBs. It's going to be difficult to go up and over top a guy like Nahshon Wright down the field. So, Shotty's going to have to find ways to scheme this thing up because I would like to see opportunities where you find Nashawn Wright having to guard a CeeDee Lamb, underneath, or having to guard and stay in front of a Kevontae Turpin or some of the more shiftier runners, because that's what he really, really, really struggles at. I don't want to line him up in an area where he's like, oh, I can just run straight and be big with George Pickens. So that's going to be an interesting thing to see, how that works out. And despite CeeDee Lamb might be double coverage, it don't matter. It don't matter. He's been double covered for a long time, right?
Yes,
he can still get off and eat when he needs to. So, CD's still going to be the guy who they go to early and often. You heard Dak say it, you heard Shotty say it. But yeah, George Pickens, their chemistry is picking up, so he can have another, it's be one of the games where he can have somewhere between 65 and 80 yards and maybe a touchdown or two.
So FanDuel obviously is responsible for making sure we're good on this show, and there's nothing that I could find on this when it comes to everything that they have to offer at FanDuel. But NFC Offensive Player of the Week, I did notice a trend when it comes to that through the first 2 weeks of the season. Guess who the NFC Offensive Player of the Week was in week 1? Take a wild guess.
Oh man, who was it?
You know what?
Was it a running back?
No. You know what? That's foul of me to put you on the spot like that, because we didn't even talk about this before the show. But let me just say that it was a quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings that just happened to play the Chicago Bears. So
wow.
I'm going somewhere with this. So
I see what you're doing.
Who was the NFC Player of the Week in week 2?
Jared Goff?
You're right. Ding, 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 ding. So with all that said, it seems to me that obviously the Chicago Bears do have some deficiencies on the defensive side of the ball. So, I'm not going to say you can go anywhere and get some action on this, but it might be a safe wager to say Dak Prescott might end up being the NFC Player of the Week after he plays the Chicago Bears.
The way Dak is playing right now, and again, this is the Cowboys will win football games on the back of Dak Prescott. And so if he continues to do what he's been doing and the way that he's been playing the last couple of weeks, there might be a trend here. It might be a trend. He might be the next guy up for the NFC Player of the Week.